I only started this business with $10,000 and now I've turned it into $1 million business. I always knew I wanted to start something on the side, be my own boss, get out of the corporate cubicle. That was like the goal. You know, there's no regulations about like what's in them, what ingredients are being used.
Scary,
like
huh?
even if you look at a bottle like of a brand that's been around for years, there's no ingredients on it. Man, how hard would it be to manufacture a shampoo? And I was like, stuff it. I'm going to do it myself. Why wouldn't someone not fall in love with this brand, right? It's because they're speaking to everyone. And if you speak to everyone, you're speaking to no one. Your earnings are uncapped in business. And I think that was like the main switch, right? Once I hit my 6-figure income in corporate, I quit straight away. I'm still capped. I can only earn 100K here, you know, unless I keep doing more and working for someone else and putting millions in someone else's pocket. Why aren't I doing that for myself? One of my pieces of content that I made did go viral, but it wasn't around my product. It was of my dog giving me puppy eyes, begging for a treat basically. And that just like absolutely blew off, right? I got all these new followers and stuff like that to my page. But then I was like, are they the right audience? When you go all in, it's either got to work or it doesn't. And it's like, I'm not going to fail. Start some paid media straight away.
Yeah.
It literally skyrocketed my growth and is taking me to $1 million business.
Alright guys, welcome back to another episode. I'm obviously not in the studio, we're in Kyoto in Japan. I've had heaps of people message where was the podcast last week. I apologise. We did intend to put one out, but I had a lot of work to get done for it. And I was doing it on a travel day from Tokyo to Hakuba, and the internet was so patchy, just kept dropping out. So no podcast last week, apologies. This podcast is epic. We go right into everything ecom related, how to scale your brand from 10K per month to 100K per month. Bella's done that in the last year, so it's really tactical advice. So we'll get into the episode in a second. Before we do, can I ask you a few very quick favors. If you're watching this on YouTube, could you just like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already? And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could leave me a 5-star review, I'd really, really appreciate it. Heaps to come this year. Let's get into it, guys. Enjoy the pod.
Back with another episode. Bella Moro, welcome to the podcast. We've been talking about this one for a while. I do that with a bunch of guests. So we've had plenty of time to prep for this one now. While your story is so interesting to me, and I think you've had a lot of incredible success with your business over the last couple of years, which I'll get you to intro yourself in a second, the founder of mycavoodle.com.au.
Yeah.
And you've just had a lot of really cool growth as well, but it wasn't like from you launched day one and you were necessarily $1 million from the start. You've really had to build the business like brick by brick. And there's been a lot of things that you've introduced into the business or introduced into your life and your approach to business and growth that allowed you to scale the business so much. Now, the last Ecom episode we had was Corbin Halliday. Now they're doing $1 million a month. And that's really cool. I love those episodes because like with the Who is Elijah and Adam Burris, you learn so much, but you're in the position that I would bet most of our listeners are in compared to the other one where we're doing $1 million a month. And you've done something that so many people would dream of doing and have on their vision boards and their goals of doing. Over the last couple of years, you've taken your business, My Cavoodle, from 10K per month, which is a great like baseline of goal for people getting into ecom, to 100K per month. Now, I think that is like a goal that I think a lot of people would really strive for. Once we, do 100K per month, then we can start, how do we go from 100K per month to $1 million? But I just think because it's so relevant to so many people listening to this podcast, it's important to hear people that have just gone through it, that have just made all these awesome changes in their business and are starting to see the fruits of that. So enough of my little rant, Bella. Thank you for coming in. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And for all the Westies that are listening, another one from the Southwest. So
Yes,
represent.
Camberway.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, give me a little bit of an intro about your business for everyone that isn't listening, and then we'll go from there. And I'll jump into some initial questions before we actually take this podcast in a little bit of a different direction. You've actually sent me a list of the 8 changes that you made in your life and business that allowed you to get those results. So we'll go into them in a little bit. So stay tuned. It's a little bit of a different format, and I'd love to hear from you guys. If you enjoy this little bit of a different format rather than just going through the story, let me know and I'll make sure we do more of them. But yeah, tell everyone that's listening about your business. And I'd love to know like the how, why, and when did you start it? And then we'll rock on from there.
So I pretty much sell shampoo to Cavoodle owners.
Yep.
That's my main business. It's quite niche. I get asked all the time. It's like, oh, how did you come up with this idea?
Yeah.
And, so I come from like a corporate marketing background, did uni, jumped through the hoops, like went through, corporate marketing manager for quite a while, and I always knew I wanted to start something on the side, be my own boss, get out of the corporate cubicle. That was like, the goal, build a life where I could work from home, and then eventually like be home like with my children and stuff in the future, and just like have a really flexible lifestyle. So I knew that I'd have to work on the side, do a bit of a side hustle to get that started. Never knew quite what to do, but I guess the idea came to me. So one day, me and my partner, so I have this love of cavoodles ever since I was a child. So before they were popular back in 2009, so I've got severe hay fever and allergies. My dad wanted us to grow up with dogs. So he saw that this new breed called the Cavoodle, mixed between a Cavalier and a Poodle, and they were good for allergy sufferers and people suffering from, hay fever and stuff like that. So we drove 4 hours to pick my, Cavoodle up. Came home, absolutely like fell in love with this breed. Anyone that has them, they just know they're like super different to like other dog breeds, and like have quite a different type of like personality and traits and stuff like that.
How would you describe their personality? And I asked because my little brother just got one. I was just telling you, he's 3 months old. So very much a little adorable little puppy. She was like 2 kilos when he got her. Now she's like 4 kilos or getting up there. So she's doubled in size. But my first experience, like having a friend or a family member with a Cavoodle, and I'm a big fan. Yeah,
they're very like baby-like, like it's basically having like a little toddler or something. They're very loving, they're very loyal, very trainable, very smart and intelligent. Like very. If I had to describe it in one word, it'd be human-like. Yeah, it doesn't. When you're looking into their eyes, it doesn't look like it doesn't feel like a dog. They become part of your family.
Yeah,
and I think that was where the secret as well, a little bit of how successful the niche actually turned out for me, is because people don't think of them as pets.
Yeah.
They think of them as part of their family, and they're willing to spend money on them, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where the idea also stemmed from eventually. But basically, we fell in love with her. But at that time, there was a lot of, there wasn't knowledge about their coats, the grooming. So, they need to be groomed professionally every 6 to 8 weeks. And if you don't do that, then they get knotted, matted. And this is where the, idea of the shampoo conditioner to soften all the mats kind of came from. But also a lot of dog shampoos, there's no regulations about like what's in them, what ingredients are being used.
Scary, huh?
And like even if you look at a bottle like of a brand that's been around for years, like there's no ingredients on it. Like it's the bare minimum. It says, it's got a bit of oatmeal and a bit of aloe vera. Great. Okay, what is everything else on there? So going back to like my childhood, when I used to wash my Cavoodle, I would break out in like hives and stuff like that. I was talking before, but I found a photo of myself. The first time I washed my Cavoodle, I had gloves on because I was just like breaking out in hives from the, products that we were using. And so I kind of remembered that, and fast forward to, that was 2009, fast forward to 2020, like I was working in corporate. Me and my partner had just moved out, started living together, and I was, it was COVID time. Weddings were postponed. We were engaged. So we had to push back things like that, maybe having a baby then, because we were like, we want to get married before we have a kid. And so, brought up all these emotions, and I was like, why don't we get a puppy? I think everyone thought of that during COVID. That's why, Cavoodles boomed during that time. And so ended up getting a Cavoodle puppy, and then it just like flashbacks back to that same moment with the gloves on, with the old shampoo, washing her for an hour, and like the result, she was itchy. She still smelled really bad.
Oh, wow.
Again, I started breaking out in hives, and I was just like, what is in this stuff? And like, so I just like went on a real mission to find a product that would be great for like her coat, would be good for my skin, and just like overall give me like, a nice like look and feel for the dog. Anyways, it didn't happen. I found a couple products, and the marketing was great, but the product wasn't great, or the product was great, but the marketing wasn't great. So I was like, man, how hard would it be to come up with this, manufacture a shampoo? And I was like, stuff it. I'm going to do it myself.
So obviously, the name My Cavoodle.
Yeah.
I'm assuming like it's created for cavoodles, but can other dogs with sensitive skin use this?
They can, yeah.
Okay.
That's like one of the main questions
Yeah,
I get
'cause
asked. I've had to make content around this like so many times.
I
So
imagine.
I'm just passionate about the Cavoodle breed. Like bred them myself. I've grown up them for years. So like I feel like I can add value to my customers and I'm speaking to that target audience because I'm speaking to me, right? And people who own them. But in saying that, like spoodles, poodles, labradoodles, groodles, like it works perfectly on like any oodle. Really, it's safe for any breed or any dog, but you get the best like actual results with the coat.
Like the curly
on
hair sort of vibe?
Yeah, like the curly wavy hair sort of vibe. It actually just like helps to like, you know, so they don't get itchy. It hydrates the coat. So they come out like really soft, fluffy and shiny.
Yeah.
So like, you know, all my reviews say the exact same thing all the time because I tested it out for so long. So yeah, that's where it came from. I went, you know, on a big journey to find manufacturers, do my research. Like I said, did the testing for like 6 months. It took me about, 6 to 8 months to launch the brand because I wanted to make sure, you know, the best marketing is having a good product.
Yeah. So was that like of that 6 to 8 month product, primarily that time was getting the formulation right?
Correct. Yeah.
We'll get into that into a second because I think it's really, you know, helpful for people to know that are going to create a custom product. Now, a lot of people at the start, when they start an Ecom brand, they're not going to create a brand new product from scratch. They can be when they identify a real need, often something that they experience within their lives, or they can't find a supplement or a hair product or a dog product like what you've done. So we'll get into that in a second, but I want to rewind a little bit. You mentioned you were corporate marketing manager for a while. How long were you doing that before you started to get the thoughts of, you know what, like this cubicle lifestyle ain't it? Like I really want to start thinking about how do I set myself up to make moves that, look, I might not get to quit my job next week or the week after, but hey, maybe in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years down the line, that side hustle that you started can bring in enough revenue and enough profit for you to quit your job and just be your own boss. At what point did that start like becoming a thing that you thought about?
Yeah, it probably started when when I was a marketing manager. I started managing people, but it was working for other people. I realized it's their business, right? They make the calls at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So even though you're a manager, you know, you have your opinion, you know how things work, like, you know, with marketing and stuff like that. At the end of the day, they're the decision makers.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I just have to accept their decision at the end of the day, even though I know it might not be the right one or I think something could be done better. And it was that also just like being in sometimes, you know, corporate can be a little bit toxic sometimes, like the people working around you and stuff like that. And that's when I was like, I'm not happy here. And that's where I was like, I always used to listen to podcasts actually.
Yeah, as like an escape, right?
Yeah, it was like an escape. And I used to listen to this guy and he used to interview business owners all the time. And he basically interviewed them about their life story, about what their business was. And it was just like super inspiring. And it was always them getting out of their corporate cubicle. And it literally inspired me to go, that's what I need to do too.
Yeah.
And so I need to start a business and find a way to get out.
What's like the one-liner? What's the piece of advice that you can give to someone? Because I guarantee there's heaps of people listening that are in a similar position, whether it be in a corporate role they hate or if it's guys and they're on the tools and they're just like, I can't keep doing this. Obviously you felt like that for a while and eventually something clicked and you're like, I'm going to do it myself. But what do you think if you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice earlier that would have got you to take action on all these feelings of wanting something more? What do you think that advice would have been?
I think people get really stuck on the product. I think that's why I didn't start any earlier. It was like, okay, what's the idea about creating a business that I'm passionate about? And so that's now I can look back in hindsight, it's valuable, and go, I should have started something earlier that I was passionate about. And it doesn't necessarily, like I'm not passionate about shampoo, right? But like Cavoodles are part of my life in a way, right? And so I was like, if I create something around that, I found a gap in the market. I'm like, you know, I was also part of like a lot of community groups and stuff like that. And I saw this question keep coming up. So that's how I was able to find my niche, my market, something that I loved. I'd be around them every day and like would just keep me motivated and stuff like that. So I think if you have something that you're already passionate about, you already have like some sort of knowledge, there's a gap or a problem that you see that can fix that, I would just say literally just start researching whether that's like a viable option, and then just go for it, like, and just build it on the side while you're still doing your job, build it up slowly. And look, sometimes it might not take you anywhere. And I'm lucky that my one did. If your one doesn't, then you just take the risk, see if it pays off. If not, just go back to the drawing board. Okay, what else am I passionate about? And what else can I do?
Yeah. I think it's a great piece of advice as well. People get stuck too much on the product. And while like the product is extremely important when it comes to picking something, I agree. But I know that based on my experience. So I have an exact framework and a set of steps that I use for identifying a product. At the start, you don't know anything, right? And so many people just keep like spinning around ideas. I would rather if you don't have any money to invest in a training program or mentorship or anything like that, if you really want to figure it out for yourself, I'd rather you pick a crap product, realize 3 months down the line that it is a crap product, and you've got the experience of knowing what to look for in a product. You've got the experience of how to build a website, how to do research, how to package it up. Hopefully you've tried some marketing, so you've got some feedback there, because you'll learn way more in 3 months of actually trying and failing than you will of another year sitting back in your chair thinking about what if and what I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and not actually getting any real data, right? But when it comes to going into a market that you said you've got a little bit of knowledge about, you probably didn't have like all the benefits of knowing how to do proper market research then. What was just to give some context as an example, you mentioned you found a bit of a gap in the market. That's like such a cliche term everyone in business says, just find a gap in the market. What did you see that was out there? And like, what was your like, how did you sort of like encapsulate what you were going to do different? Like what was the one line of the elevator pitch of what My Cavoodle was going to do different or offer different to the market compared to what was out there when you launched?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think the thing was like all the dog businesses doing shampoo, they're talking to everyone. And that was like the main thing. I was like, imagine if I just spoke to people that actually wanted to, care for their dog, like for that breed, right? So it's almost like, I guess the way to explain it was, again, I was in these community pages, right?
Yeah.
And the question that kept coming up, it's like, it could be in your local community page. It could be, you just have to open your eyes, like, and listen to people, like what they're saying about a certain field or a niche, but they kept asking for recommendations. What shampoo should I use on my cavoodle? What shampoo can I use on my, and I used to see this question pop up in these community chats like 20 times in a month.
Wow.
And they would just like boom, boom, like recommend all these, but there were never like great reviews about it or anything like that. And I was like, what are these brands doing wrong? Like, and I would, click on them. I buy the product. I test it out on my dog myself. And I was like, why wouldn't someone not fall in love with this brand, right? It's because they're speaking to everyone. And if you speak to everyone, you're speaking to no one.
Exactly.
So I think what became so successful straight away, and I could see it, was people love their own dog, right? And that's part of the breed, right? So cavoodle owners are not like Staffy owners, or they're not like German Shepherd owners, or not like,
Yes.
So talking to them specifically and talking to their problems. Not every person that has a dog has the same problems, right? A Frenchie, they've got, sensitive skin, and they've got, breathing issues, right? Cavoodles, they've got itchy skin and their coats require more maintenance, like a poodle. German Shepherds, maybe it's like more behavioral issues and problems like that, right? So it was identifying that problem, that niche, and that's what I mean by finding like the gap.
Yes.
In the market and the niche that I was in.
Yeah, I really like it. Like finding like who's the opportunity to speak someone that isn't being spoken to as well.
Correct.
Because, so often people want to start a business and they want to go after the biggest, most broad industry because they know, the total serviceable market is, 10 million customers just in Australia alone, right? And they think that's going to be good. But if you're trying to compete in a market like that, you're often going to be going up against these legacy brands that have been around so well. So just as an interesting like frame of reference, you thought, how do I cut out my own little lane in this? I'm just going to speak directly to them. So essentially what you've done, you've built your whole business around like one core customer persona of like the bigger pet brand. And then within that, in terms of cavoodle owners, I'm sure there's all different types of cavoodle owners which all have their own quirks, their own reasons for buying, their own ways they care for their dogs. And then you've created your own business within that. So that's really, really cool. Just a little like bit of a different frame of reference. for people when they start thinking of how do I move into an industry, pick a product. Sometimes it might be looking at a bigger product, looking about finding the opportunity to speak to someone that isn't getting spoken to. Ideally, if you're just getting started, if you have some previous either interest or passion or knowledge about that, then you can do really well. You'd rather go into a smaller niche, do really well in that niche and realize, oh, I've kind of grown as much as I can than as a complete beginner trying to compete against Pet Barn or whatever it may be. So that's really cool. I love hearing that, the different way people approach getting into business. Now, a couple last questions and we'll dive straight into those 12 points. Talk me through the emotions of launch and then whether it was the excitement or a little bit of the disappointment that followed in, say, the three months after when you realized, oh, damn, it's not as easy as everyone makes it out to be at times.
Yeah, so because it was COVID, I did have some problems like launching. It was like everyone went into lockdown. My products got locked in the factory.
Yeah.
And I was like, crap, like what do I do? My products are all locked up. So that could have really, stopped me in my tracks and gone, oh, like throw in the towel, like I won't start marketing it. I won't, but I was just like, nah, I need to make this thing work, right? So I was like, that's okay, all good. I'll just like start all my marketing activities and build my email data list up, right? And start posting on social media and start getting a bit of a following. So then that way when I launch, I actually bring in sales like straight away instead of launching and just thinking people will, like I think people think I'm just going to launch something. I haven't told anyone about it and go, like you'd expect sales like straight away that day. It's not really how it works. Like now I know how to do a proper launch, but like in hindsight, looking back then I was like, oh, I did all right. But yeah, it was, if I looked back and I did that now, it would be disappointing. I was like, man, I could have done so many things differently.
So what did you do for that launch, the V1 launch of the brand? And then what else would you do or what would you do differently if you were launching again with the benefit of all your experience and expertise now?
Yeah. So for the first 2 years, I didn't touch paid media. So I literally grew the brand organically and doing like guerrilla marketing, right? Yeah. So up to the lead up of that launch, it was all based on trying to make sure my target audience was following me on like my biggest platform is kind of like Instagram, right? So the thing about knowing your target audience and speaking to that one person, because I did that, it made it really easy to put out content, right? And to tell them who I was actually selling my product to, right? So a lot of Cavoodle owners actually make profiles of their dogs on Instagram.
As you do, yeah.
As you do, yeah.
As you do, yeah.
So a lot of people already had those accounts going, Millie.thecavoodle or Henry.thecavoodle or whatever. And so I would literally just like go on Instagram, follow these people, send them cold DMs, like introduce my brand, like all their photos, leave comments.
Old school stuff,
like
just
going
in and
working
any
for
bit of momentum at the start you can. You don't have budgets for paid at the start, create your own.
Exactly. It was all
and it's
organic.
hyper-targeted. It's not like Facebook, spam it out and eventually you'll figure out who to send it to. You're literally going directly to the Cavoodles themselves.
Yeah, pretty much. I just used to be on my phone and just be like, message this person, send them this link. And I used to send them to the website to put their, so I would share everything of like Instagram, what was coming, what my product was about, all that, had built all the website. And then when they'd get there, they'd put their email in, building that data list. So before I started, I had, a couple hundred ready to go. So then that way when I launched and sent that first, EDM out, or it was like ready to go and I had people checking out and ready to buy kind of thing. So that was, I guess, the lead up, even in those Facebook communities, like having my profile, like I had a different Facebook name to compared to like my persona that I use for the business. I don't like give my full name out and stuff like that. So it's just like Bella. So it would be like also tagging my business page and being like, hey, check out these products. Like they're targeted at Cavoodle, owners and blah, blah, blah. And this is what the product does. So a lot of guerrilla targeting and stuff like that in the beginning to compare like what I do now, which is a lot more hype, FOMO, mix of organic, paid ads as well. SMSs, EDMs, there's so much more. Yeah.
How was that launch day? Do you remember if you got sales on the first day?
I did, yeah. But it was like less than $1,000. And I've learned even things like how the product, bundling and things like that, increasing your AOV. It's just things you didn't know in e-commerce before, right? Like just starting out. So like that's one thing, you know, that I should have maybe reached out for help earlier to learn more about how the ecom side of things and marketing like work together.
Yeah. We'll talk about everything you do now because I think that's going to be really interesting. But I just think those like guerrilla style marketing where it's like very like time intensive, like sort of scaling the unscalable. A lot of people, you know, when they launch, I feel like people these days almost feel like they're too good for that. Like, what's it going to do? It's like, well, if you don't have the money, like you got to do everything you can. It's like someone will create a website. They're not even running ads and they'll do a post about it on their Instagram. And all they've done is like post like 3 statics in the row. And they're like, why did I not get any sales?
Yeah, you have to have like a bit of a backbone for like, I'm just going to keep going, right? Yeah. Even if nothing happens, right? Because I still had my job, I still had money coming in, right? So I knew that I wasn't relying on selling to, you know, but I wanted to get out of my job. So I needed to build it to a stage to be able to do that. So that's what kept motivating me and pushing me to do that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, but again, like I didn't have a big budget. I only started this business with $10,000 and now I've turned it into $1 million business, right? But so it was other things like blogging and SEO, right? It cost nothing for me to do it, but adding value like to my customers, like I just checked the other day, like one of my original blogs that I've written, like it's gotten 15,000, you know, clicks and hits because, you know, using that organic method of marketing, it's a long-term strategy. It's not a short-term get rich strategy, right?
I don't say that. A lot of ecom people just want the get rich quick ones.
No, it's not like that. It's been 3 years in the making, almost 4 now. So.
Yeah. When was that like holy shit moment where you're like, this is a real business. Like this is a real thing. Was it launch day? Was it when you know, hit your first 10K month, when you quit your job? When was that moment for you that it hit you what you've built?
It was definitely when I quit my corporate job.
Talk me through that day.
I was like, it was scary. I was like in the room, told my manager that I was leaving and walked out of there feeling like, shit, this is like, I've got to do this. I've quit my job. I've got no, and I was walking away from like a 6-figure income, like, and so it was pretty comfortable. In your bank account every week, every fortnight, whatever it is. Exactly. I was walking away from my team. I was walking away from that steady paycheck. I had literally just finished building my house as well.
Wow, it's a brave time to do it.
It was a big time. Like, you know, I just went through like a major surgery as well. And I was like, this needs to work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, so every day I was just like dedicated to the business, day in, day out, working on it, trying to improve it. And I think when you go all in, it's like, well, it's either got to work or it doesn't. And it's like, I'm not going to fail, right? I'm not going to be one of those businesses that fail. I got to do it.
That's when you get the best out of yourself as well though. But how did you plan that big leap? Because again, it can be quite scary, like quite nerve wracking. You know what you're risking, but at the end of the day, if you needed to go back and get another job, I'm sure within a month, 2 months, 3 months,
exactly,
you can get another job. So it's like for the people listening, oh my God, how am I ever going to do that? Like, what's the worst case scenario? You try, it doesn't work. You apply for jobs and you get another job.
Yeah. You just got to believe in yourself. Like, I think I've always had like quite a bit of confidence, like in myself, in my abilities growing up. You know, that's how I kind of landed those jobs really early and earned those big figures quite early because, you know, it's great to talk the talk, but you got to walk the walk as well. And
what revenue level were you guys at when you decided to go full time? Do you remember?
To be honest, looking back, I was like, how did I quit? I actually wasn't that profitable. I wasn't actually making as much as what I thought, like now analyzing my numbers. I think I was just like super confident that I had like verified the business. It was like 2 years in, I was like, well, I've got a good returning customer rate. I was like, you know what? Like you said, the worst possible case, I just go get another job again. But it was, you know what? I've just got to do it. I've just got to jump and take that risk really. And like you said, I put, you know, money away for, you know, savings and stuff like that.
Create a little bit of a buffer for yourself.
Yeah, a bit of a buffer just to give myself like a couple months and stuff like that to make sure, you know, could pay the bills and pay the mortgage and stuff like that. But, you know, setting myself like a time, like I need to increase from this much to this much. And I think in ecom, you can get, I don't know if, you know, you've experienced this, but you can kind of like get a little bit lazy and be like, oh, that's okay. The money's coming in. But like, it's almost like you go, okay, maybe that's the max that my business can do. And I started getting into this mindset where I was like, it was a bit dangerous, right? It was becoming comfortable. And so I can't pinpoint the exact moment, I guess. I think I was getting married and had to pay for my wedding and my honeymoon. And I was like, I'm not making enough to live the lifestyle that I want. You know, we had booked the Europe trip and everything like that. And I was like, I want to be able to do this every year, not every like couple years or anything. I need to really grow my business. I need to take this more seriously. This is my full-time job, you know? And so I was like, I need to take this business from like 10K months to, you know, I would have been happy with 30K, 50K at the time. But I think it was a change of mindset, and it was like a switch. It was like, I'm limiting myself mentally. And I was, you know.
And you didn't even realize, right?
I didn't realize.
I was playing in what's comfortable.
Yeah. I was like, oh, 10K months, that's great. You know, I hit 20 like very organically one month, you know, doing what I was doing. And I was like, wow, 20, that's amazing. Okay, I could aim for 25. And once I hit that, I was like, fuck, there's a lot more to be done.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not, it's because I stopped learning. I think I was really burnt out with the learning thing. You know, I tried a lot in high school. I was, you know, aiming for a 90 ATAR. I went to uni. I studied for 4 years. I did, you know, more studying, learning. And I was just like super burnt out. And I was like, no more learning. Like I'm not doing another course. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And that was limiting my mindset.
Yeah.
And so once I realized that I was becoming too comfortable and I wanted more, I was like, well, I need to switch my mindset now. And it was back to listening to the business podcast. It was back to reading books, back to like, it was changing up my routine so much to get the most out of myself. Cause I was like, if I don't improve myself personally, I'm not going to improve myself professionally, and I'm not going to grow my business.
Exactly. And your business is always a reflection of yourself. And I think, you know, there's been moments in my life where, you know, since I've started the business, where you get so busy being busy and you sort of like burn yourself out to the point where you're like, you can't handle anything other than all the tasks you have to do every day. But it's important to have those like reset moments where you can like realize, holy shit, yes, I'm comfortable doing this now, but is this where I want my life to be in another year from now or 2 years from now? Because if it's not and you continue doing the same things, you're going to be in that position. So I think it's a really good jumping off point to talk about like these 8 big changes that you made in your life in order to take the business to that level. The first one you had was, again, we've sort of discussed some of these things a little bit already, but I'd love to have a little bit of a chat around each one of these. Was recognizing, number one you had was recognizing the need for change and getting uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just exactly what we were talking about. Take people through that realization. One, you kind of already have, and then what you actually did physically, like what changes did you go and do? You started listening to the podcast, invested in education. What did that look like for you specifically?
Yeah, I think like looking back, I realized I was like, I don't want to live like anyone else like who's in my life right now. I want more, right?
Yeah.
And so when you realize that and you go, I need to do things differently than what other people in my life have, right? And these people can't teach me anything more because they haven't been or haven't gotten to where I want to go, right? And so once you realize that and you realize like the sky really is the limit, like your earnings are uncapped in business. And I think that was like the main switch, right? From once I hit my 6-figure income in corporate, I was like, I quit straight away because I was like, I'm still capped, right?
Yeah.
I can only earn 100K here. And you know, unless I keep doing more and working for someone else and putting millions in someone else's pocket. Why aren't I doing that for myself and for my own life, right? I want more than this. I want, you know, a second house. I want to go to Europe. I want, you know, this and
Europe
like
every year. And just to paint the picture, you mentioned you just got to a 6-figure salary.
Yeah.
In 60 minutes, when you just did your Black Friday not long ago, how much did you make in an hour?
I made 56K in 60 minutes. So I was like, it can be done. Like that month, that whole sales period, it ran for 9 days and I hit my goal of like 105K, like to the dollar.
Yeah.
And then that month I did my biggest month of over 150K. And so when I look at that, I go, I didn't even make that in a year's salary. And I've just made that in a month.
Although
right?
a lot of people, when they're, you know, they're at the start of their journey and they're working a full year in corporate, will earn what you made in an hour.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to be like egotistical, look at us, but it's like shows you the possibility when you flip your perspective on things and think, okay, I can trade all my time in here I could train all my time in here. At the end of the year, I might earn 110, 120, 130, 140 grand after tax is even going to be, you're not even going to have 6 figures left. But that like important shift now, that learning, what did it then get you to change within the business? Because I know you mentioned you mainly focus on like organic marketing early stages. You're like building your email list quite slowly, your organic content, some B2B. But what were the big shifts? Like when you went out and started seeking advice and surrounding yourself with like other people that were inspiring you, that were lifting you up, that were also going after their dreams. What are the couple of the tactical changes that you implemented into the business?
Yeah. So I think the main thing was realizing that I don't know everything.
Yeah.
I think it's, you got to put your pride and your ego aside a little bit and go, even though I, have these skills and I know that, you know what, I don't know this, this, and this. And my big thing was avoiding paid media because I didn't know enough about it. And I was scared to give someone else that task and do it because I'd heard of so many horror stories with like agencies and wasting your money, and I had done it all myself, and I was like, I still need to do it all, like do it myself so I learn it, know it, and then that way I can master it. So it was like, okay, how do I do that now?
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, I need to go learn how to do this thing, invest in myself, invest in, coaching and courses to teach me these skills that I didn't have. Yeah. And that was like the massive one big thing that changed my business forever.
And that brings us on to the second point, investing in yourself. So many people, don't want to do that. But before we do, just to touch off that last point, you mentioned you had the realization, that you're limiting yourself. But going from having the realization to actually following through with it, for a lot of people, I see a lot of people get stuck in that point. I realize what I'm not doing, or I realize what I have to do, and I'll do it for a day or a week or a month, and then it gets a little bit too uncomfortable again, and then they'll retreat. What was it for you that allowed you to just like, screw this, I'm running as hard as I can and I'm not going to stop? Do you remember what that was?
Yeah. You know what? When you spend money on something, like let's say a gym membership, right? Probably not the best example because then people end up stopping. A lot of people do waste money doing it. They waste money and they stop going, right? But initially, right, you're so motivated at the start, right? You've spent that money and you're like, I'm going to go like frequently and get the most of my money out and, do this, right? So it was almost like it was a scared thing that I spent a lot of money that I wouldn't usually spend to invest in something learning. I was like, well, now I need to make it work. Like I just had to do the action to do this. And that was also complementing it with a habit to change my habits and feeling uncomfortable. Yes. So one of those books I read was, the 5 a.m. club, right?
Okay. Yeah. I saw that you're doing 5 a.m. Now I tried that for a bit. Not for me.
Look, I am more of a morning person, but that was actually one thing that really changed my life in just learning something and then implementing it straight away. That was the difference.
Yeah.
That was literally the major difference that went in the right direction so I'd be like, okay, I've invested in this course. I need to put time aside to learn that. I'm already busy during the day, right? I've got all these other things that I need to get to, reply to customer emails, and then the learning kind of gets away from you, right?
Yes.
So you go, okay, I need to dedicate a certain amount of time and I need to do it when people aren't in my face, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and I'm going to literally do 1 hour of learning and finish the video or the course or whatever. And then
book, whatever you're doing.
Whatever it is. And then implement it right there and then.
Yeah.
Don't take any more time. Just do it. So I would watch it, how to do the paid media, get in my ad account, and boom, I would create an ad and then launch it.
Yeah.
And it was like that, not waiting and just doing it straight away. And I think looking back, I did that originally when I started my business. It was implementing straight away and not waiting. It was just like the taking action.
Yeah, I think that's massive. Before you put that book down, or if it's a course that you're doing or whatever it may be that you're working on, it's so good to so many people, they'll get the information. Let's just say it's a good book, get the information. Wow, I learned so much. I'm so inspired. That was awesome. What's the next book? But it's what did you implement from that? And I think I'd rather you read instead of reading a book a month and then just flying through it, read a book a quarter, fully integrate the biggest learnings from that into your business, because that's how you get real life change, right?
Yeah.
How did you feel? How much money have you spent, you reckon, on non-traditional education over the last year or since you started investing in yourself?
Yeah, definitely over 40K. Yeah, in the last 12 months, which is huge.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of money for
100%.
someone that, you know what I mean? Like that sounds really scary. But you honestly
But look at the results from your business.
Well, that's exactly
so it sounds like a lot. I'm not agreeing that it's a lot. I'm agreeing to some people listening that it sounds like a lot.
It does sound like a lot.
The best investment, particularly if you're in the first 10 years in business, probably even beyond, but I can only speak from being in I'm still in my first 10 years of business. The best investment you can make is investing in yourself.
Yeah. I always say to people, people change, situations change. What changes, in your bank account, it changes all the time, right? But what doesn't change is what you've learned and like what's up here, right? No one can take that away from you.
And if I look back at like my business career and look at the times that things have been performing the best, like I'm at my most effective when my habits and my routine are the best. Right.
Yeah.
It's so boring and it's so cliche, right? But just like, this isn't something I pre-planned or thought about. If I look back, whenever I'm the most dialed in, your business and things just tend to work out for you. Again, everything comes back to your habits. So I couldn't agree any more with you. Now, the next one is something I want to spend a little bit more time on. By the way, if I've got allergies, so if my voice is starting to change, I feel like my nose is blocking the longer we speak. But number 3 on what you did to take your business from 10K per month to 100K per month is simplified your focus for growth. Now, one product, one platform, $1 million. Now, talk to me about some of the specific shifts you made, particularly around like your paid media and understanding your metrics, because this is going to be the biggest one. I would, before we even go on and look at the rest, like for anyone that's doing around, 10, 20K a month, if you're trying to like get to 100K per month, if you just do this one thing, obviously the rest of what we're talking about feed into it massively. And I think maybe you need a little bit of investing in yourself, putting yourself in these situations enabled you to get to this stage where you can actually take information, but is really understanding and mastering and figuring out what works for you in terms of paid media for your business, right? All that organic stuff and all the emails, all of that is great. But as you would know, and I'm sure you've seen firsthand, you figure out your Facebook ads and that's going to drive anywhere from like 60 to 80 to 90% of new customer acquisition, right?
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing you can spend your time on and master as a new business in ecom. What changed for you in your approach?
Yeah. So I looked at my numbers, and I think this is going back to before how I said I was, how the hell was I making any profit, right? I was like looking at my numbers and going, I need to be doing a lot more. How do I do that, right? I had a really good high returning customer rate, lots of loyalty, but like you're right, I needed new customers. I needed to broaden my search. What I was doing wasn't enough to do that, right? The organic stuff wasn't doing that. So the paid stuff is getting in front of new people, new eyeballs. So, the more eyeballs you're in front of, the more reach, the more customers, more sales you make, right? More revenue. So it just made sense, like that was part of the next step. And I decided to go down, Meta, which is, Facebook and Instagram combined, and really just focus on that. Like you said, one platform, one product, $1 million, and just sticking to that. I think people these days, they're really like, oh, there's TikTok and there's Facebook and then there's Google and then there's so many things to get distracted by these days. If you underestimate the power of like focus and like not multitasking between too many things at once, which I'm completely guilty for as well at times. Yeah. But that was one thing, was like a non-negotiable. I'm just going to go down this route and really hit it hard and see what I can do with that.
And I think like I was just having this conversation last week with our producer Joe, who's behind the monitors and stuff now, about like all these like secondary advertising channels and TikTok, and what role do you think they play for people that are, because we're always trying to simplify. Like it's great to like, all the information in our head is awesome, right? But if you try and give all that to someone who's like early stage ecom, it's going to frazzle them. They're not going to know what to do. Your head starts spinning because you've got all these things to consider. Really, if you just pause all that stuff, like you off one product and just like meta ads alone, so Facebook and Instagram, let's get to 100K per month that way. And then we can start looking at these other things, because you absolutely can get to 100K per month off the back of like 90% of your customers coming from Facebook. Obviously, then we can nurture them and bring more returning customers, which is great and something it sounds like you've done really well. But I think that's a really good point. Now, a couple of things I want to touch on this. Before we go into like the creative and like the more of the tactical changes that you did within Meta, you mentioned a couple of times like one hero product. Now, that makes me think, were there times where you started getting all these ideas for all these new products and started to launch them and maybe they didn't do as well as the hero product? What was your experience around that?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. So, my hero products are my shampoo, conditioner, right? And then the supplement of the, cologne, kind of the 3-pack. And one thing I thought was, if I expand my range, like that's got to bring in more revenue, right? That was like a mistake I made before even really touching the paid media. I was like, well, if I just expand my product range, I'll make more money, right? No, it doesn't work like that, right? Then I had products that were like dead stock, right? And I had products that weren't turning over. Like I had to focus more on my hero products. So now I've realized focus on the products that are actually bringing in the most, and then just create like versions or more of that and what actually people want. So like with mine, it would be creating like a new fragrance, right?
Yeah.
And realizing and really, again, honing down on your niche. I went too broad. I was like, I'm going to bring in these dog harnesses and these dog toys. No, just focus on what you do really well. Focus on what like your customer loves and what's obviously selling the most, right? You need to analyze that and go, okay, how do I create more of these winners?
Yeah, exactly. And I think like this is relevant for everyone that's in that 10 to 100K range. Obviously, once you've nailed that and you've figured out your secret sauce and it's killing it and you're doing like a couple 100K a month and you're growing, then we want to look at other ways to like grow the business like horizontally rather than just scaling what we have. But at the early stages, simplifying it and going deeper. Because it's like if you only have, all of us, regardless of if we're full-time in our business, if we're working part-time or we're working full-time, we have a couple hours on an evening, we only have so many hours in a day. If you have a good product and you've verified that you have a good product and like there is demand in the market, product to market fit again is something that gets thrown around a lot. If you don't have product to market fit, it's going to be really difficult to scale regardless of your marketing. But if you just put like 90% of your time into how do I figure out the structure of my paid ads? How do I just create more content, test more hooks, test different styles of ads to grow the business? That is going to be the biggest thing that's going to drive your business forward at this stage.
And you'll figure that out through paid marketing as well. It will tell you what your winners are, 100%. Right? Like it'll be clear like day and night because those are the ones that are converting. That's what people are engaging with, right? That's what they're interested in. And then everything else is just kind of like noise, right?
Exactly. What were some of now that you've like taken a lot more control of your own paid media and understanding what's moving the needle for your business, what have you identified as the types of creatives that do work best?
Definitely founder content.
Back? Did you hear that last line? I'll say it again. What was I saying? Okay, yeah. You remember to edit this. So when it comes to like scaling your paid media, obviously you've taken a lot more control of that yourself. What were some of the creatives that you've noticed have been getting the best results since you've been putting more of a focus on that?
Definitely founder content and things that aren't so polished. Something more raw, like content that's more UCG, like that the customers think it's just like natural when flowing and it's not like, so just to give you an example, right? I spent quite a bit of money getting these videos produced and I was like it was a white backdrop. It was, I had looked a little bit done up. I was talking straight to the camera. I was talking at the person.
Probably a little bit rigid as well.
Yeah, a little bit like silly as well. It wasn't like natural and flowing or anything like that. And they just did not work in the ad account. Like Facebook just didn't like it. And obviously the customers, they just weren't relating to it, right?
Yeah.
And so I started like changing up the content and putting my face behind it and literally just recording myself on a video like a selfie basically. You just hold up the phone and you start talking to it, right? And showing the products or showing an unboxing or showing what I'm doing like behind the scenes or like that I just got, stock in like, something's just been delivered. I'm just opening it up. I'm having my Cavoodle there where like, I'm holding her and I'm saying, our dryer's just arrived or, whatever it is. And those are like the best performing ones. Like a really good performing one recently was me actually showing how to use the product like on my dog and then just like tweaking any parts, using a bit of UCG be. And then also, you know, changing like the voiceover, making sure there's captions on there as well. Sometimes even like static images of like what the problem is and like the solution as well is really good. And one that did really well was being out like just in public and approaching someone on the street and being like, do you own a cavoodle? Like, and then basically like pitching the brand to them on the street and like giving them free product and stuff like that. Like those ones have been going off in the ad account.
Yeah.
So
I love hearing stories about people like doing all these things, because often at the start you don't quite feel comfortable doing it and you're not sure.
Yeah.
But how much more comfortable do you feel now compared to when you started?
Oh, it is so natural. I have literally hired a content creator for a third of my week, and that's all we do now. We just like produce content like for the business, just over and like test different things. So differences of like UCG, it's, you know, me using product. It is me talking to the camera, but like educating the audience as well. It's, you know, recording the dogs and then, using the products on them and stuff like that.
That was going to be my next question. What's your process? Like, how do you plan the next month content ahead? And do you have a process for ensuring you're testing new things? How do you sort of, when you're planning out the content for the next month for your paid ads, what does that process look like for you?
Yeah, so I have like a notes in my phone, and every time like a idea or a question or something comes to me, I write it down, right? So like a lot of these could be around what your customers are already asking you, right? Like what's a question they're already asking? So you said before, like, are these products okay to use on other oodles? That is like one of my most, you know, the questions that I get asked all the time in the business. So I have made, you know, multiple content posts based on if these products are just for cavoodles, and I explain to them like that I'm passionate about it. This is why I developed these formulas specifically for my cavoodle and the reasons behind that, you know, itchy skin or the coat, all that. But then why they can also use it on their poodle spoodle, you know, all that kind of thing. So it's finding things that people actually want to learn, and educational ones as well, right? Like even giving them blog articles to go to and read about that is an answer to their question, what they want to already know.
Yeah, it sounds like just a good amount of like creative variance, like testing everything, seeing what lands, finding the winners, and then doubling down, tripling down on that for the next month.
Pretty much.
That's your strategy, right, for Facebook. Now, before we move on from your paid media stuff, again, we just spoke about your Black Friday sale where you did 56K in an hour. What did the preparation for that look like? Like within your ad account, within building hype, what was sort of the preparation for that? Yeah. And how did you feel to do, you know, over 50 grand in an hour?
Yeah, it started months before. I actually tested the idea of a really short, sharp sale for end of financial year. And it kind of followed from the idea of creating FOMO in my business. So one problem that I had when I started paid media was I couldn't keep my products in stock. So good problem to have, right? But I kept selling out. So it created this thing where I was always like on pre-order and no one could actually have my products. And so once I would sell the next batch, I would, you know, I'd be on pre-order again. And it created almost like this thing where my brand didn't have to go on sale, and it created this massive like hype and FOMO, like, oh my God, like she's launching a pre-order again. I need to get in and buy that. And so where I figured out, you know what if I created that same thing for a sale where it was like a limited amount of time. I saw other businesses, you know, in Ecom doing this as well. And I thought, you know what? Might as well just test it out, right? And so it started with end of financial year. I did 40K, 42K, I think in 40 minutes. So I was like, and it worked. Yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to do it for Black Friday, but I'm going to do it better. Yeah. Right. And so it was a matter of building up my data list ahead of that. It was also, okay, what other value added things that I can add? So things like a gift with purchase, and like creating a bit of a tiered cart system. Yeah. And so, you know, making sure like my bundles and stuff, and making sure they were like high AOV. So like average order values in the carts, and like being able to hit like those revenue numbers that I wanted to. So that kind of like helped and pushed that. So, but the hype was creating content basically around this whole event and saying that, you know, we are going to be on sale, but it's only for 60 minutes. Yeah. And so you get people messaging you like, when's the time starting? Like, and you're saying I don't have enough stock. Like we sell out all the time. So we don't have enough stock to keep going after this. If we sell out during this sale, that's it. And it makes people go, oh my God, like
I can't miss out.
I can't miss out. What if I miss out? Then I have nothing to wash my dog with, right?
Yeah.
And so it just creates like all this hype, and they know to get on early, and like people are waiting in line online. You can see the numbers like go up online,
ready
for it to unlock at like 4 o'clock, and then boom, in the first like, minute, you've already made 10K.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Did you please tell me you recorded
I
yourself?
I recorded the whole thing. End of financial year, I didn't. And I regretted it so much. I think one thing, if I'm, telling new business owners, like record the process, right? Record all those little important things that you do, like write down stuff that you've done from one sale that works so you can implement for the next one and take those learnings away and what worked, what didn't, what you could do better, and
100%. I think if not even for brilliant content, which we all know it is, but just like you're going to want to look back at that yourself. You know what I mean? Like years down the track when you're doing $1 million a month, or you sell the business, or you're doing your next thing, or you're, kids are growing up and you show it. Like imagine being able to see the moments where like you're literally changing your life on a camera. And obviously for the like content purposes, it works so well. We've just covered 2 of your points in there. The other one was like creating FOMO demand and a brand that rarely goes on sale. So I think you've nailed that. Another one that I want to talk about, one of your 8 points, is outsourcing for efficiency. Tell me some of the things that you outsourced. First and foremost, like what were the things you outsourced first? And then what did that more importantly give you time back in the business to spend on?
Yeah. So one thing mentally, again, that I had to like overcome is that like I can't do everything in the business. And I think one thing that really helped me see that was like I have a 4-month-old son. And so I was like, okay, I can't do everything now. I'm going to have to delegate and multitask a little bit, right? So for the first 2 years of my business, I was like picking and packing my orders just to keep like costs down, which what you have to do. Like,
and
for the
you have full control over it as well, which I think is really important. You do the QA, you know what's been shipped out. If there's anything wrong, you're touching it. So I think it's actually good for people to do at the start, depending on then their situation with time. I don't see any issues in 3PLing from the start, but I do think you get some good data controlling the whole process as well.
For sure. And then so I outsourced that over probably 15 months ago, and that's changed like my life completely because I wasn't working on in the business. I was working on the business. Yeah. So that was a big one. Outsourcing.
And how much time, just for the context, sorry to cut you off, what would you be spending on packing orders per day?
Yeah. Towards the end, it was getting close to like 3-4 hours. And like I was pretty fast by that time, like being able to like putting boxes together, and plus my packaging, like you saw it today. It's like, a nice box you got to put together. It's got an insert, then the bottles like go in the insert, and then it's got to go put in a padded mailer and all that. And so, it does take time, right? So just outsourcing that.
But imagine having an extra 3 or 4 hours today to create more content and test more ads.
Yeah. Well, I was like, I need to focus on growing it. So I have to outsource this to grow, right?
Yeah.
And so that became like a non-negotiable for it. So that was one thing I outsourced. The second thing I outsourced was content. I couldn't do it all myself, right? The editing, the filming, the coming up with like all these new ideas. Again, you only have so much time in the day, right? So, and if you've ever edited content and filmed it yourself, right? You're so critical of yourself as well. So like, it's always like retakes. It's, I don't like this, so I'm going to redo it, right? Now it's production over perfection. It's just get it done. Like Amelia, my contact, she goes, yep, that's good. We did it one take. And I was like, are you sure? And she's like, no, we're done. And I was like, oh my God, okay. And then we'll just put it out there. And you know what? Sometimes if I see something that I didn't like what I said, I'm like, I got to let it go.
Yeah.
Production over perfection, and
100%.
just get it out there.
Yeah.
Better have something out there than have nothing at all. And I see, again, so many other business owners, they worry about what they look like, what they sound like. They worry about like what they're putting out on camera. You just have to get over yourself. It's like, it's a mental thing that you're holding yourself back from your own growth. So once you get over that and just think, if I get over this, I'm going to be able to grow my business, then it all changes.
100%. And that brings us on to our next one as well, like off the back of content, which is a key piece. And now we've had businesses on this podcast. You and Danielle are a really good example. like Balcase and like heaps of businesses get to the point where they're doing like pretty much 6K months off the back of organic content. Like that can happen. The thing is, it doesn't happen for everyone, and it's such a lottery. Like the thing is, you create good content, you put it into Facebook, you're guaranteed to get the reach.
Yeah.
You'll pay for it. The better the content, the less you'll pay for it, but you're guaranteed to get the reach. Organic content, while it still does really well, there's just no guarantees. You might not have the personality, or you might not have the time to edit it and research all these hooks. But the fact that you can not only film this stuff for organic, sure, you put it out on organic, some of it will do well, some might bring in extra sales. Utilizing that content as part of your paid media, do you feel like that's where you get like the bigger bang for your like content spend? Or do you, when you're creating new content, are you trying to create content with the thoughts of, yes, I might use some of this for paid media, but I'm trying to, do well organically, maybe go viral? What's sort of your approach to the content creating process? And do you separate videos specifically for ads and specifically for organic, or do you sort of just feel more the ideas and see where they best perform?
Yeah, I think I've realized like with the content that I'm creating, my goal is not to go viral anymore. I think before it was like, if I just, do that one video that, gets 1 million hits, oh, my business is going to change and I'm going to go viral. Some people, like that does happen overnight and that's great. And, like they have celebrities trying their stuff and, but I just realized I was like, it is going to be a lot harder. Like sometimes that could be 1 in 1 million, right? Or whatever it is. So I was like, that can't be my strategy.
Yeah.
Moving forward, right? Just trying to always get the likes and you know what? One of my pieces of content that I made did go viral, but it wasn't around my product. It was an entertainment one.
Yeah.
It was of my dog giving me like puppy eyes, begging for a treat basically. And that just like absolutely blew off, right? I got all these new followers and stuff like that to my page. But then I was like, wait, are they the right audience? Like my followers, they're so true to my brand and the audience that I want to speak to. Whereas having a viral video like that, I felt like it was actually diluting who I was speaking to. It was like all these other dog owners that just thought, oh, this puppy's cute, right? I'm just going to like this page.
Yeah.
And that's not what I'm after. I'm after intentional content now.
Yeah.
Things that people actually that own a Cavoodle or a Noodle want to actually follow my page because they want the content around that, right?
Exactly, yeah. And I think like to link it back to, which was your 6th point, founder visibility, authenticity, storytelling is like part of those changes. Were you not originally, because you mentioned you started putting yourself in the content. What was the content before you got involved? Was it just all UGC that you got, like sent some products out, get some people sent some?
Yeah, it was
back?
like just a lot of the product of itself. Like it wasn't like sometimes my face in it. I wasn't like confident talking to the camera all the time. It was also one of the things like I regret now. It was a lot of stories, but not putting them into reels. Like I felt like I've adopted certain things too late. Like I got onto the reels too late. And I was doing a lot of posts, right? And I was still old school mentality. I was like, I'll just put a post up or a photo of this, or I'll just talk about it in my story. And I didn't use that content, which was good content and people were liking it as a reel and getting it out there to like get more reach and stuff like that. Yeah. And then the same with, other things in the business. I was just like, I didn't adopt it early enough, like AI, right? Yeah. And so now I'm like, how do I adopt it like quicker in my business and to see growth, right?
What do you see as like a trend emerging in 2025? Like where are you with everything that you have the ability to work on? Like where are you focusing your time in 2025? What channels, what tools, where do you think you'll be spending a bulk of your time this year?
Good question. It is the AI route actually. So I realized I actually wanted to scale more with people because like I've been a manager, I've managed people on the team, but it came to me the other day. I was like, when I talk to businesses, the main bottleneck for a lot of businesses is actually people, right? And managing people. And then, so I was like, okay, if I can implement AI to do certain things in my business that, I don't have to do. So things like maybe customer service, or it could be creating content that's not of me, not founder content, right? It could be more UCG content that, how it's got like those backgrounds and like videos and stuff, like all that news technology that's out, maybe investing in that. So then that way I don't have to manually always like do these things, right? Or things like copyright. Like I'm a massive fan of Chat GPT. Like I ask it questions and like it comes back to me with information and stuff like that. So I think the world, of technology is definitely changing, and we've got to just like change with it now. And I think if I focus on, okay, how do I scale my brand with AI? I think that'll take me to the next level now.
Yeah, I think if I was someone, say I was getting into ecom like relative, like, well, I mean early 20s, I'm just working a job. I don't necessarily have a lot to invest. I don't really have money for stock or anything yet. If you want a good point of difference when you get into ecom, because ecom's been around for a while now, but if you were gonna like have a point of difference, not as the product, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, if you can be like, just take a year and fucking learn everything you can about AI, and then get into ecom, you're gonna have a massive leg up on the competition because you know how to do everything in a few clicks. Something that would take you like 2 days, like a day of planning and then like storyboarding and then executing. You can do that once you set up all your systems
anymore.
You can do that in like in like 10, 15 minutes. But the thing is, it takes you a couple days of research to get the skills and the know how to do it before you. But then every time you can do it in 10 minutes instead of 2 days, right? And I think like that's your point of difference. If you have a lot of time, invest in education in things like AI. It's a little bit more difficult when, you're running a business already, you've got multiple things that you're doing. I think you still need to invest some time or surround yourself with people and learn from people that have been able to do that so you can still get that, because I think that's a really good like point of advantage for anyone that's relatively new in the space that wants to get some like competitive advantage over the competition. Let's round out the last couple of points and then I'll ask a few questions before we wrap up today. Number 7 on your point is what allowed you to get from 10K to 100K. We've spoken about already, which is running limited time sales like for a short period of time. End of financial year, just to touch on some of the key performance of these sales that you did. So 40% off for 40 minutes, did 42K. So over $1,000 a minute. Remember your first day in the whole day, you did less than $1,000. So that's really cool. And Black Friday, 30% off for 60 minutes, 52K. So those periods of condensing it, do you think had a better impact for your business in between the sales? Because I know you used to do every month you'd go on a sale. What did the impact have on the business outside of those like sale moments?
Yeah. So it just meant also customers weren't wanting to just buy during a sale.
Conditioned to come to you while you're on sale.
Exactly, right? It was like creating like this reputation for my brand where it was like, oh, that's okay. Like I saw a comment one time on like a post that I did and someone had tagged someone and goes, oh, that's okay. But they usually have sales quite frequently. So I would just wait until they have a sale. And I don't know why, but that just like got under my skin and I was like, crap, am I diluting my brand? Like it's quite, like I'm trying to position myself as quite premium in the market as like a dog shampoo, like my products go for like $90 for, shampoo, conditioner, cologne. It's not a cheap thing. But it's an investment that the Cavoodle owners are willing to make because they're spending so much on these dogs, right? And so that comment, I was like, I'm diluting my brand. I'm trying to position myself, with one of those premium brands and I'm starting to drop that, right? And so creating that FOMO and then running those intentional sales that it was like, hey, I'm only available for sale during this time. If not, then you miss out. And I'm not running another one for another 6 months. People go and make sure they're buying. And you know what? They buy after the sale too, right? Because they're like, well, she's not going to, I really want this product. There's no more
flexibility.
No, they're like, I really want this product. So I'm just going to buy it now because, and then they'll buy it again during the sale.
Yeah, particularly if you have a product that's like repeat purchase heavy, like you have to be very cautious of that. And your final point, we've kind of spoken about this throughout the podcast anyway, was number 8, the power of networking and surrounding yourself with the right people. If you could give us another like sort of, tidbit from how that's enabled you to level up and scale your business, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. I think, again, with the coaching thing, I've been surrounding myself with people that are also like-minded in business, right? I think sometimes we don't always surround ourselves with people that, obviously when you're growing up, you've got friends from school, you've got friends from work, you've got, family friends, and their goals aren't always the same as you, right? So being able to be part of communities and groups that They think alike. They're all building a business. They're all building a brand, right? And they want to do well and they want a similar lifestyle that you want, right? And so you're surrounding yourself with people that also think the sky is the limit and they're not putting caps on their, their businesses. They're like, well, I might only be earning 10K, but I can earn 100K a month, right? And so like that was a massive change, that being around people like that and just like being able to talk about business. The second thing was that last year I actually got invited. I know you've just recently spoke to him, like Frank Grief and Adam Boris was on, but I got invited to like these founder table meetings. And the first one was, businesses that were doing a certain number, so like me, and also people just like kind of like starting out ideas. And that was really great to like network with people doing something similar, but they saw something in my business and me at that table. And so they actually invited me back for a next one, but with people who were doing over 10 million in their business.
Yep.
Now that's where it really flicked the switch for me.
You're like, shit, 100K per month isn't that much.
No, it's not. And I was like, and they're like, you can do it in your business, but like I was seeing how everyone else was able to do it. And like at the end of the day, like we're all human, right? You can do what I can do. It's just, you've got to believe, right? These people believe in themselves. They believe in their business and they're willing to work on it and go all the way. And it's just, they're motivated. They're ambitious.
What was the biggest difference from like the first group to the 10 mil plus group? Yeah,
it was interesting. I was actually the only female sitting at the table, surprisingly. I know, Who's Elijah was founded by Raquel anyway. Yeah, but Adam was at that table that day. But I found it really interesting and it made me, on the way home, I was talking to my Uber driver about it because he asked me, he was like, were you the only female at the table? I said, actually, yeah, I was. And like I've always been able to like, get on with guys like quite well ever since I was like young growing up and stuff. But it was their mentality. It was like almost like, they have more appetite for risk or, they're willing to like go all in and not like multitask and like being able to like focus on their business. And I was like listening to them and going, okay, what do I need to do to be more like these people, right? And my husband always says, he's like, you've got so much like alpha energy, right? And I'm like, okay, but you know what? And some people might see that as like a bad thing, but I actually see it as a good thing. And I'm like, okay, cool. How do I turn that into being, ambitious and taking it to the next level? And that's what kind of like at this table, I was like, there's more to be made out there, right? And these people, they're not limiting themselves.
Yeah.
They're happy to have a little bit of appetite for risk, go in all on their idea and they truly believe in themselves and are like completely confident. And I'm like, oh, I'd love if us women were a bit more confident in ourselves sometimes and like thought sometimes almost like how men do, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a bit different.
I'd love, I don't know if he does this, but if not, it'd be really interesting. I don't know like how you'd frame it, but I'd love if he could, as he's doing these founder tables with like the people at each stage, I'd love if there was like a bit of a mental health survey, like how happy are you in your life? How satisfied are you? Like where's your self-worth, all that stuff. Cause I think it would be really interesting to get data and it's like, whether it be 1 out of 10, like you add them all up, which group is like happiest in terms of outside the businesses. Cause I know a lot of successful people, they work and work and work and work, but they're so unhappy. So it would be really interesting to see like, hey, where's the sweet spot? 100K a year, million a year, 5 mil per year, 10 mil per year, 100 mil per year. It'd be really interesting to see that sort of data because it's cool. It's cool to understand how these people are moving and what they're doing. Yeah. But also I think it's like really important to understand or like, it'd be really good to contact, say, these are what people are making the most money. But if you look at their mental health score, they're actually the most unhappy out of everyone. How do I take the good from that and not sacrifice, everything else outside of it? I think it could be really interesting. Now, let's do a few last questions and we'll wrap this up. We've spoken about so many things today, but if what comes to mind from the biggest lesson that you've learned going through this business journey over the last 3 or so years, 3, 4, 5 years, 2025. Yeah. Launched in 2020. Crazy.
Biggest lesson. I don't know everything.
It's a good lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like never stop learning and also don't put a cap on yourself or your mindset, right? And if you can, be positive, show up, be confident, have good habits, have good routine, your world can literally change. Because if you don't have a positive mindset and like have the confidence in yourself to keep going after rejection, after, oh, my business only made $1,000 in sales, right? It's how you look at it, right? It's like still being grateful at the same time, even though you're ambitious and want growth. And I think it's talks to the mental health side of things as well, right? So before I started paid ads, my goal was to hit $1,000 a day. I'm doing that every day now, right?
Yeah.
But that was my biggest goal back then. And like, I was like, if I hit that, oh my God, I'm going to be so happy. Now the marker has moved, right?
Yeah.
It just keeps moving on.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, now it's got to be $5,000 a day. So then I can hit this number, right? But you got to be grateful and look back and like how far I've actually come, right?
Yeah.
So that's like one of the biggest lessons. It's, have a positive mindset and try to do things that keep yourself in that frame of mind every day, whether it be, a walk, a podcast, being with people, that are also positive and a good energy around you.
The gratitude thing is the biggest thing because like regardless of whichever group people are in, everyone has business stresses and things that they got to do, right? But it's like realizing, and this is like a really good like thought exercise I'd put myself through at least once a week in those moments where you just be like, oh, fuck, I've got so much to do right now. You look at yourself, like you look at where you were a year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it may be. And it's like your dream was to be in the position you are today. So it's like, but you're there now, but you're still not like happy because then you got the next thing. It's like, it's the hardest thing I feel like for entrepreneurs to like really master the gratitude piece. Like if you can be truly grateful and be willing to like, go through the shit and figure everything out and go through the ups and downs and still stay positive without like letting it like overtake like your being and like your mental health is linked to the performance of the business at all times. And there might be like a problem come up and you got to fix and all of a sudden you didn't do 5,000 today, you only did 2,000 and you're feeling really shit about yourself. But yeah, like 2 years ago, if you were doing $2,000 a day, it's like, you're over the moon. So where does it end? Yeah,
exactly. So like journaling and just like staying humble and remembering those things, like some of the ways, that I stay on top of that.
Another question for you, if it comes to your mind, what's like a really cool ecom hack that you just think a lot of people wouldn't know about? Anything little, it could be an app, it could be a video that you made, it could be anything that you've learned over the last year in these conversations that you just think not that many people know that would be cool to share as a little piece of value for everyone.
Oh, you know what? If you asked me this question a couple of weeks ago, I had like the perfect answer for an ecom, but literally Shopify's actually changed it. You know the shipping protection about how you can, but they've changed that. So
no, let's use that. A lot of people would still like take value out of it.
It's kind of relevant. Like you can do it in different ways anyway. Still, so there was a hack where you can and there was full apps set up to able to do this in your cart, right? So with your products, like you've got, your tiered system, and then at the end there, before people check out, there's this little thing called shipping protection, or you could do things like, extra wrapping or, if it's a gift, like sped up postage and stuff like that. And the shipping protection one, you were able to set it that it was always on, right? People could toggle it off. Like there was no that they had to, have that. It wasn't a scam or anything. It was just, they could have it if they want to, and you put, a price. And a lot of ecom businesses, I don't think you realize the cost of shipping. It's actually a really big one, right? Before you go into it, you should do a little bit of looking about what actually things cost with postage. So one thing that I was really struggling with was with a consumable item like shampoo, when Australia Post would take it away, there were leaks, there were explosions, and it would end up with people. And I was like, oh, damn, I've got to replace it. And, with my customer service, it's like, yep, you'll get a brand new one, right? Like, when that happens. But what was happening was Australia Post don't give you any of that money back. They make people jump through hoops. There's not really a protection for it, right? So this was actually a way that I was able to actually improve my customer service, right? Because they would pay me $3.99, and it was almost like it was sitting in like a little bucket, right? Ready to be able to service my customers to the best of my ability. And it was almost like free money.
Yeah.
In a way.
Protects your margins as well.
Protects the margins.
Exactly. It protects them,
and you can
protects
still
you.
do it, but there's little hoops you have to look into it. But,
And the last one, what do you think is like the most important trait a founder needs to be successful? And like, all right, let me reframe it more specifically.
Yeah.
What do you think the most important trait a founder needs to take their business from 10K per month to 100K per month?
Resilience, confidence in yourself. And I think they go hand in hand almost, like resilience and confidence, right?
Yeah.
No matter like if you have a setback, like pushing through it, not giving up, right? Finding a solution to the problem. I think a lot of people don't do that. They just like kind of go, oh, well, that's it. Or like they don't keep pushing themselves further or like have the confidence in themselves to go beyond what they already know. So it's, And
let's just say someone sends you a DM after this podcast comes out and they say, hey, my name's Rachel. I'm in it's so crazy. I listened to your podcast. I'm in exactly the position you were in before you made all those changes. This is what my business is doing. This is the marketing things I'm doing. And it's all the same as what you were doing before you made these changes. And they said, what's one thing that I can start tomorrow that's going to give the biggest impact to my business? What would you tell them that thing is?
If they were at the exact same point, what I was, it was, start some paid media straight away. Yep. It literally skyrocketed my growth and is taking me to $1 million business.
Exactly. There we go. So Bella, thank you. First podcast together done. I think you did great. Thank you for sending this all through. I love that we got to like spend time on each of these things because look, while a lot of people listening, and I'm sure with you, they want to be doing $1 million months. We all do. I guarantee there's a lot more people with a business at 10K trying to go to 100K than there is at 100K trying to go to $1 million. So thank you for providing all the value that you did. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for the gifts as well. She was very generous with the gifts she brought in. And good luck for 2025. I'm sure you'll hit and take the business to all new heights. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dylan.